Hey guys, tonight we step into the flickering torchlight of an ancient Roman bathhouse. The air smells faintly of warm olive oil, crushed herbs, and something far less pleasant that you can't quite name. Clay lamps gutter on the damp walls, casting long shadows across tiled floors, worn smooth by centuries of sandals. Somewhere nearby, water trickles from a marble basin, and the gentle clink of jewelry being removed echoes in the chamber. You ease into this world of whispered gossip, damp towels, and crocodile dung sunscreen. Yes, that's a real thing. And yes, you're going to rub it in. You probably won't survive this. Well, not your modern skincare routine anyway. The ancient Roman obsession with beauty wasn't just about looking good. It was about showing wealth, power, and a total lack of concern for long-term health effects. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And I'd love to know where and when you're listening from. Drop your city and local time in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into the night's journey together. You arrive in Rome during the twilight of the Republic, maybe the early years of Augustus's reign, and your first stop, naturally, is the Thermae. These are public baths, sprawling and elaborate, full of steamy chambers and echoing conversation. You might be picturing a quiet spa. It's not. This place is bustling. Men debate philosophy in the Tepidarium, kids splash in the Natatio, and wealthy women strut between rooms like runway models in sandals. Now, imagine you're a Roman lady of status, or perhaps her pampered lover. Before stepping into that hot, misty air, you need your protective cream. Enter the crocodile dung sunscreen. Allegedly imported from Egypt and mixed with oil, it was thought to shield your face from the harsh Mediterranean sun. Historians still argue whether it was genuinely effective or simply exotic enough to seem magical. But the key point? People paid for it. Willingly. And while you're dabbing crocodile byproduct on your cheeks, your friend is coating her arms in snail slime, believed to smooth the skin. The idea of animal-based beauty wasn't strange, it was fashion. You didn't just want radiant skin. You wanted skin that glistened like polished marble, an ideal copied from statues. Oddly enough, those statues were often painted back then. But hey, details. As the bathhouse envelops you in clouds of scented steam, someone next to you smears their legs with ground pearls suspended in vinegar. That's Cleopatra's trick, allegedly. It probably didn't make her more beautiful, but it did impress anyone watching. And that's really the point. Beauty wasn't private. It was a spectacle. Take the makeup table or cosmetics station, where jars of rouge, chalk, and charcoal sat beside implements made from ivory and bronze. You'd apply foundation, probably lead-based. But who's counting? Then some poppy-colored rouge for the cheeks and soot for the eyes. The result? A pale, haunted look straight from a Roman fresco. The kind of complexion that says, yes, I've read all of Ovid's poems, and yes, I'm barely surviving off honey-drenched dates. There's something odd about standing in a tiled chamber while smearing toxic paste on your cheeks. But you're not alone. Everyone around you is doing it. In fact, it's encouraged. A woman with a naturally tan complexion might go to great lengths, chalk, ashes, even powdered marble to lighten her face. Being pale meant you didn't work outdoors, and not working outdoors meant you were rich. This was your real skincare goal. Visible idleness. You glance at your reflection in the bronze mirror, warped and slightly greenish. You tilt your head. The eyeliner is uneven, the white paint too thick, but no matter. You've made the effort. Often. And in Rome, effort equals elegance. But beware, the wrong look can send the wrong message. Too much rouge? You might be mistaken for a courtesan. Not enough? Perhaps you're sickly. The balance is subtle and constantly shifting. Just like fashion today, only with more powdered minerals and less contouring. Meanwhile, behind you, a servant is grinding red ochre into paste for another patron. She's muttering about how the upper classes wouldn't survive 5 minutes in the fields. And honestly, she has a point. Outside, Rome bustles under the afternoon sun. The Forum is a riot of color and noise vendors selling crushed iris fur. Perfume. Teenagers with dyed hair lounging near temples, and fortune tellers pushing little packets of beauty charms. Somewhere, a senator's wife is demanding a special ointment made from rose petals and goat fat. Whether it works or not is irrelevant. It's exclusive, and that's all that matters. Roman beauty was not about natural looks. It was about artifice and attention, the illusion of perfection. Even men joined the game. Wealthy ones, at least. They tinted their lips, plucked their body hair, and sometimes powdered their cheeks. Historians still debate whether this was considered feminine or just fashionable. It seems context mattered more than strict gender norms. And then, tucked between beauty rituals and hot baths, there's the occasional bizarre theory that rubbing in lion fat could give you courage, or the anointment made from bear grease and myrrh would attract suitors. Quackery? Probably. But you're not here for science. You're here for the vibe. As the steam thickens and your legs stretch out across a marble bench, you feel a little dizzy from the scented oils and the faint trace of ammonia in the air. Someone nearby is waxing, poetic about the skin-softening effects of fermented barley. You nod politely, even though you know it smells like sour bread. You close your eyes for a moment, picturing all the strange creams, pastes, and perfumes you've smeared on in the last hour. Your skin tingles with unknown ingredients. Your face glows faintly radioactive from the lid powder, and you feel, well, exhausted. Beautiful, perhaps, but mostly exhausted. You exhale, long and slow, and let the bathhouse noise fade into the background. The world outside might be full of marble columns and empire building, but here, in this steamy sanctuary of absurd rituals, you're just a Roman citizen trying not to break out from crocodile dung lotion. You're still basking in the steamy afterglow of the Roman bathhouse, but now someone gestures you toward a quieter chamber, smaller, tiled, and full of implements that look suspiciously like medieval torture devices. Welcome to the Roman hair removal suite, where the motto is beauty first, comfort never. Hair, in Roman society, was deeply political. Smooth skin meant wealth, control, and social standing. So naturally, every visible patch of your body needed to be fuzz-free. You sit on a cool marble bench, and a servant enters holding a rough gray stone. "Pumice," she says with a small smile. That doesn't bode well. Before you can protest, she begins rubbing the stone across your arms with determined, circular motions. It's like being sandpapered by someone who thinks you insulted her mother. You grit your teeth and remind yourself. Smooth skin is fashionable. Red, raw skin? Also fashionable, apparently. Historians still argue whether these exfoliating rituals were daily torture or occasional rites of passage. But one thing is certain: body hair was a big no. Legs, arms, underarms, and yes, even more intimate areas were expected to be as smooth as a statue. Male or female, rich or aspiring, didn't matter. Hair was associated with the uncultured, the rural, the enslaved. Of course, there were options. You could smear yourself with a homemade wax blend of resin and pitch-thick, sticky, and suspiciously flammable. A friend might help spread it. The brave, or foolish, pulled it off themselves. The rest screamed and bribed someone else to do it. You imagine the resin clinging to your skin, then tearing away in one savage pull. You flinch just thinking about it. Some Roman text mentioned tweezers, metal, heavy, and designed to grab individual hairs. You picture plucking your legs one hair at a time while trying to make small talk. You'd need the patience of a philosopher and the pain tolerance of a gladiator. Now for the fringe tidbit. Occasionally, upper-class Romans used a depilatory paste called silythrum. It was a mysterious blend sometimes made from arsenic, quicklime, vinegar, or other substances that would probably melt a hole through modern safety regulations. You're told to sit still as the warm paste is slathered across your legs. It tingles, then it burns. Someone whispers it will all be worth it. You're not so sure. You catch a glimpse of yourself in a polished bronze mirror, slightly blotchy, a bit red, but undeniably smooth. The beauty standard has been met for now. Of course, not everyone could afford this level of attention. Slaves were expected to help with these routines, often becoming skilled beauticians, though never participating in the luxuries themselves. You can't help but think about the strange balance of intimacy and hierarchy. One woman applies wax to another's legs while discussing the latest scandal in the forum. It's personal, political, and painful all at once. And speaking of pain, let's not forget the eyebrows. You lie back and someone leans over you with what looks like a curved fishhook. She gestures toward your brows. You're about to get reshaped. Eyebrows were a focal point of Roman facial aesthetics, arched, elongated, expressive. The ideal Roman brow was plucked thin and drawn long. You might even enhance it with charcoal or soot. No one wants sparse brows, but bushy ones? Barbaric. Unless you were into unibrows. Of course, but we'll save that surprise for later. Back in the room, another patron is arguing loudly with her beautician. Her upper lip was waxed too roughly, and now she's threatening to switch bathhouses. Apparently, there's one in Trastevere that uses imported Egyptian sugar wax instead of resin. The things you learn in here. Outside, children run barefoot through the streets, their hair wild and uncombed. You remember being young free of the expectation to scrub, pluck, wax, and polish. Back then, dirt was just part of life. Now, it's a sign of neglect. You sigh. One more strip of wax is being prepped. Suddenly, you remember a story someone told you, a satirical poem from Juvenal, maybe. In it, a man spends more time grooming than his wife. He plucks, perfumes, and preens until he's so polished he practically reflects sunlight. Some scholars think this was an exaggeration meant to mock the soft Roman elite. Others believe it mirrored reality, more than we'd like to admit. You glance over at a young senator's son now entering the room, holding his own pumice stone. His robe is perfectly folded, his sandals spotless, and his expression full of grim resolve. He's here to suffer for beauty just like you. The awkward truth? Even in an empire that conquered continents, body image could conquer you. As the session ends, a servant brings over a jar of soothing lotion, probably made from olive oil, crushed herbs, and ground rose petals. You rub it into your skin, feeling a faint coolness. It stings slightly, but at least it smells nice. You rise slowly, legs stiff from sitting too long and from the mild trauma inflicted on your pores. You're smooth, you're sore, and somehow you're proud. In the atrium, the sunlight slants in soft golden beams. A woman nearby is adjusting her stola, admiring her newly plucked arms. She catches your eye and smiles the smile of someone who survived the same ordeal. You nod. A moment of shared understanding, across time, space, and follicular suffering. Tomorrow you think you'll brave the hair-dyeing process, ashes, and why, anyone? But tonight, you just want to let your skin breathe and your nerves recover. As you step out of the grooming room, your body tingles with every shift of your tunic. Beauty may be agony, but you're a Roman. You suffer gloriously. And just as you're rounding the corner ready to find a quiet place to rest you over here, someone whisper excitedly about the next big trend. Gladiator sweat perfumes. Of course. Why not? You follow the whisper through a shadowy corridor, curiosity nudging you onward like a nosy house cat. Past a row of statues, idealized, naked, glistening, you hear a soft clink of glass and the gentle pop of a cork. Someone is selling tiny vials of something. Aromatic. The vendor grins like he's about to share a secret of the gods. This, he says, is Suda Gladiatorum, gladiator sweat. You blink. Yes, he repeats. Bottle perspiration scraped directly from the bodies of victorious gladiators after a fight. Before it even dries, you hold a tiny vial in your hand. It's cloudy, warm, and smells like ... victory, maybe. Or gym socks. Depending on your optimism. In ancient Rome, gladiators were more than just fighters. They were sex symbols, walking fantasies, and living proof of strength and survival. So, naturally, Romans, especially women of certain tastes, believed their sweat had magical, aphrodisiac properties. One quick dab behind the ears, and you were irresistible. Historians still argue whether this was genuinely a widespread practice or just a juicy urban myth. But scrolls, graffiti, and sales records suggest there was definitely a market. You imagine a wealthy matron watching her favorite gladiator from a shaded balcony, her heart racing. Afterward, her servant scurries to the ludus, pays a few coins, and comes back with a sealed flask of essence. Is it sweat? Is it water from a bath with a sweaty man in it? Does it matter? As you tuck the little bottle into your pouch, you spot other beauty curiosities lined up on the vendor's cart. Bear fat mixed with cinnamon for warm attraction. Myrrh soaked in goat milk for eternal youth. And something that claims to be lion saliva. You don't ask how that was collected. You walk on, still a little stunned that today's luxury perfumes evolved from scraping armpits after death matches. But scent in Rome wasn't just about seduction. It was status, hygiene, and performance, all rolled into one. Remember, this is a city that baked under relentless sun, had limited plumbing, and didn't believe in deodorant as we know it. People needed ways to cover the stench. That's where Hungary professional perfumers came in. These artisans crafted oils and balms from imported ingredients. Roses from Egypt, frankincense from Arabia, saffron from Cilicia, and cinnamon from India. Exotic, expensive, and far more pleasant than gladiator runoff. You arrive at a perfume shop, or maybe a back room in someone's villa. Bowls of crushed petals sit on a marble table alongside golden amphorae full of oils. A young man in a dyed tunic swirls ingredients with a bronze rod. His nose twitches as he tastes the air, judging balance and aroma. This is chemistry and art, and the stakes are high. One wrong note, and your perfume smells like burnt meat instead of sunlit ambrosia. Roman men loved perfume almost as much as women did. In fact, some historians think the average elite Roman man went through more scented oil per day than his wife. Shoulders, hair, even the soles of his sandals were perfumed. You imagine Julius Caesar, fully armored, smelling like roses and almonds, and yet moderation was key. Smelling faintly of jasmine? Classy. Smelling like you fell into a vat of frankincense? Suspicious. In satire and street gossip, people who wore too much perfume were often mocked as effeminate, vain, or even morally questionable. There's a fine line between luxury and desperation. You pass through a crowded market where vendors chant their wares. One man's shouting about saffron stewed mouse balm, which makes your nose crinkle. Another offers a blend of musk and mint, perfect for charming senators and silencing in-laws. He winks. A woman nearby dabs a drop of floral oil onto her wrists. She looks over at you and raises an eyebrow. The message is clear. What are you wearing? You panic slightly and reach for the gladiator sweat. But no, not yet. Maybe not ever. Instead, you find a small clay pot in your satchel. You uncap it. Mellow, earthy scent wafts out, probably lavender and fig oil, something recommended in a scroll by Pliny the Elder, who claimed it was good for stabilizing the mood. Whether it works or not is another matter, but at least it doesn't smell like a battlefield. Let's not forget the quirks. Did you know that some Romans believed wearing perfume on the head rather than the body kept you calm? They'd rub scented oils on their scalps or even sprinkle powdered flowers into wigs. And speaking of wigs, guess what they were often made of? Hair from captured slaves. Imported blonde from Germania or jet black from Namibia. You run a hand through your own hair, suddenly wondering whose head your fashionable cousin's curls used to belong to. Perfume had layers, literal and social. The base note was always wealth. Exotic ingredients were expensive, and applying them was a slow, deliberate ritual. This wasn't a quick spray on the way out the door. It was ceremony. It was performance. You think again of that tiny bottle of gladiator sweat. Absurd? Definitely. But it tells you something profound. Romans weren't just obsessed with beauty. They were obsessed with the idea that physical essence could be transferred. That strength, seduction, and power could seep through your skin as you walk back into the cool shade of a stone portico. Your senses overloaded with scents. You catch a whiff of something foul, sharp, rancid, unmistakable. Someone just walked. By wearing too much something. Maybe oil gone bad. Maybe fermented dolphin fat. Yes, that was real too. Not everything in ancient perfumery was pleasant. Some recipes used crushed insects, animal bile, or resins that took months to prepare. There was even a perfume made from beaver glands collected from animals caught along the Danube. You wonder who first looked at a beaver and thought, that smell would look great on me. You sit now, cross-legged on a shaded bench, the city buzzing beyond the garden walls. The midday heat rises in waves, and the perfumes you've absorbed mingle into a dizzying floral storm. It's overwhelming, weird, and kind of wonderful. You're not sure if you smell like a goddess or a gladiator's laundry, but one thing is clear today. Your scent tells a story, and tomorrow it'll be time to powder your face with lead. You wake the next morning with a faint sheen of oil still clinging to your skin. The gladiator's sweat vial rolls to the edge of your bedside table, thankfully still sealed. As you stretch, a servant brings over a tray, water, linen cloths, and your makeup box. It's time to do your face. Today's look? Chic. You begin by dipping 2 fingers into a small clay jar of foundation Jerusa. It's called a thick white paste made of vinegar and powdered lead. Yes, lead. That sweet, slow poison we now label do not eat was, in Roman times, the holy grail of flawless complexion. You smear it across your cheeks, forehead, neck, even your ears for good measure. The coldness sinks into your skin like marble frost. You glance at your reflection, pale, luminous, and just a little sickly. Perfect. The more you look like a statue, the better. Paleness in ancient Rome was more than vanity. It meant wealth, leisure, and indoor living. You weren't toiling in fields or sweating over a market stall. You were reclining on cushions while someone peeled your grapes. Historians still argue whether this fashion was influenced by Greek aesthetics, imperial snobbery, or sheer competitive pettiness. Either way, if you didn't look like you had anemia, you weren't trying hard enough. After the lead paint comes the blush red ochre or crushed poppy petals. You tap it onto your cheeks in small circles, just enough to look alive beneath the whiteness. Then comes the coal. Made from soot, antimony, or powdered charcoal, it lines your eyes with bold definition. You're aiming for a look that says, I might recite poetry or summon a curse at any moment. Some Romans added a dash of blue to their eyelids with powdered azurite, while others went for green using malachite. Toxic? Oh, absolutely. But gorgeous in candlelight. Quirky tidbit of the day. Some recipes even suggested using crushed beetles to add shimmer to eye makeup. You pause, squint at your powder jar, and sincerely hope it's not one of those and now the lips. Red was the default, but the materials varied, everything from wine dregs to sheep fat mixed with cinnabar. You roll the waxy mixture between your fingertips and press it to your mouth. It tastes faintly of iron and crushed dreams as you work. You think of the Roman satirist Martial, who once mocked a woman for having so much lead on her face that her kisses left permanent marks. Satirists love tearing apart overly painted women, comparing them to ghosts, clowns, or melting statues. But they also expected them to look perfect. Go figure. A servant brings over a mirror. Polished bronze, not glass, of course. Your reflection is a little distorted, but it does the job. You look regal. Slightly unwell, perhaps, but in a high society way. The kind of complexion that says, I could faint at any moment, and you'll feel terrible about it. You step outside. The sun is already glaring, and you immediately feel the foundation begin to sweat. A little white streak drips down your jawline. You dab it delicately with a cloth and pretend not to notice. Across the street, another woman is reapplying her lead-based face paint in the reflection of a wine shop's glass. She glances at you, both of you momentarily judging each other's technique, and then nods. The silent acknowledgement of mutual face poisoning. Men, too, wore cosmetics, especially those in the theater or seeking a bit of flair at the forum. But subtlety was key. A hint of powder, a well-shaped brow. Anything more, and you risked whispers. Your neighbor Quintus, a wealthy merchant's son, once arrived at a banquet with full eyeshadow and lip stain. The gossip lasted for weeks. Some admired the boldness. Others called him a walking Venus. One child allegedly had nightmares. You secretly thought he looked amazing. You pause in a fountain and splash water on your hands. Nearby, a group of schoolboys snicker about their teacher's painted nose. Apparently, he's using too much blush to hide a spot. You smile to yourself. Even then, teenage mockery was alive and well inside a nearby shop. You explore more. Exotic cosmetic trends. There's a new shipment of fucus, a seaweed-based rouge imported from Gaul. The vendor claims it warms the blood and enhances passion. He also tries to sell you a brow tint made from rust scraped off temple. Gates. You're not sure if that's symbolic, unsanitary, or both. But not everything about Roman makeup was performative. Some believed in its healing properties. Pliny the Elder documented dozens of recipes that blended beauty with medicine salves that brightened the eyes, paste that prevented wrinkles, even powders to cure freckles. Historians still debate whether these were sincere remedies or just hopeful marketing. You run your fingers over your cheek. The paint has settled into fine lines. The more you apply, the more you start to resemble a wax figurine eternally stuck between glamour and decay. And that's the strange magic of Roman beauty. It tried to freeze you in time, to preserve youth with minerals, status with powder, and allure with toxic shimmer. The cost? Slightly swollen eyelids and the occasional fainting spell. Back at your villa, you sit by a window, the breeze carrying scents from the street baking. Bread, citrus peels, a hint of donkey. You lean on your hand, careful not to smudge your cheek. You remember a friend who used to sleep upright to preserve her face paint before a dinner party. Another would mix her own blush, adjusting the pigment, depending on whether her crush would be present. Some Romans even used powdered pearls to add a glow, proving that ancient luxury was just as extra as today's. The light shifts, and you see yourself in the mirror again. There you are, chalky, regal, and possibly radioactive. You smile. A tiny flake of lead falls from your upper lip. That's the price of being beautiful in ancient Rome. One breath of glamour. One breath closer to, well, historical irony. You're touching up your already perfectly poisoned face when you notice something strange about the woman across the courtyard. Her brow is connected. One long, elegant brushstroke stretching from temple to temple, arching like a bird in flight. You tilt your head. Is that intentional? Oh yes. Welcome to the glorious age of the Roman unibrow. Not just a fashion statement, but an intellectual flex. In elite Roman circles, especially among women, the unibrow was sometimes considered the height of allure. It suggested intelligence, seriousness, and quiet, brooding beauty. If your natural brows didn't quite meet in the middle, no problem. You could fake it with powdered antimony or soot applied delicately by hand, or with a tiny brush carved from bone. You dip into a small jar of pigment and experiment. A tentative line across the bridge of your nose. You look back in the mirror, a little stern, a little mysterious. You could definitely pass for a poet or a person who judges others silently in libraries, but not everyone agreed on the ideal brow. Historians still argue whether the unibrow was truly popular across Roman society or a regional trend, perhaps borrowed from Eastern influences like the Greeks or Egyptians. Some sources celebrate it, others mock it. One satirical writer even likened the look to a hairy caterpillar napping on your forehead. Harsh. Still, in some Roman beauty manuals, the unibrow gets a loving mention. Alongside soft cheeks and pale skin, it's listed as one of the desirable features of a learned, modest woman. Not the flirty types who paint their lips crimson and wink at gladiators. No, this is philosopher beauty. Meanwhile, brow grooming in general was serious business. You were expected to pluck the strays, shape the curve, and define the ends. Men, too, participated, though more discreetly. A strong, clean brow suggested self-discipline and virility, while a shaggy or wild brow was seen as barbaric. You glance at a statue of Marcus Aurelius, frozen mid-thought, his eyebrows carved with such detail they seem ready to twitch. Even emperors weren't spared the grooming gauntlet. At your side, a young woman mutters that her brows have grown in too fast. Her servant is preparing a blend of vinegar and crushed marble to bleach them back into line. You imagine that stinging your forehead and count your blessings. You're going full unibrow today. But even this seemingly minor choice could carry meaning. The Roman world didn't separate fashion from philosophy. A woman with natural brows and little face paint might be seen as chaste, intellectual, virtuous. Add a little rouge and perfume? Suddenly, she's suspected of ambition or worse. Romance. Your friend tells you about a woman who used bat dung to stimulate eyebrow growth. Apparently, it was common knowledge in certain circles. A fringe remedy. Certainly. Possibly literal. Fringe. You make a mental note not to borrow beauty products from her again. As you walk through the bustling forum, you see the full spectrum of brow styles on display. Some ladies sport delicate arches, shaped like crescent moons. Others have bold, straight brows that command attention. A few have shaved theirs off completely, replacing them with painted lines and geometric patterns. Then there's the extreme. One merchant claims he saw a woman with gilded brows, painted with real gold leaf. You raise a skeptical brow, which is harder now that it's fused with its partner, but say nothing. In Rome, who knows? Beauty, after all, wasn't about following a trend. It was about declaring your alignment. Were you a follower of fashion? A devotee of stoic modesty? A theater enthusiast with a flair for the dramatic? Your eyebrows told the world what kind of Roman you were. And yet, despite all the powders, brushes, and rituals, you can't help but smile at the idea that even in the most powerful empire on earth, people still stood in front of mirrors, squinting at their brows and wondering, too much? You pause at a market stall. The seller offers a variety of grooming tools, tiny tweezers, brow combs made from ivory, pots of pigment in every shade from charcoal to rusty clay. You ask if he has anything to help make your unibrow more even. He pulls out a delicate stencil, carved from bronze. It's shaped like a perfect arc with a little dip in the center. Guaranteed symmetry, he boasts. You take it, because who doesn't want guaranteed symmetry? Back home, you sit by the window and begin the delicate task of reapplying your brow line, this time using the stencil. You hold your breath, one smooth stroke, then another. You lean back and admire the result. Do you look serious? Wise? A little. Intimidating? Yes. All of the above. You pour yourself a small cup of watered wine and sip slowly, watching as passers-by flood the streets. You wonder how many are judging each other's brows. Probably all of them. Tomorrow, you think, maybe you'll go minimalist. No pigment. Just a clean arch. Or maybe you'll let the hairs grow wild and scandalize the neighbors. You can almost hear them. Did you see her forehead? She's either in mourning or starting a philosophy school. You laugh softly, because here's the secret about Roman beauty. Underneath all the powders, waxes, and charcoal lines, it's still just people trying to look a little better, a little bolder, a little more themselves. And today, yourself happens to have one majestic, inked-in, thoroughly glorious unibrow. You're halfway through your second cup of watered wine, reclining beneath a painted ceiling of winged cupids, when someone nearby starts complaining about toothache. Too many candied dates, she moans, clutching her jaw like a tragic mask. You sympathize, then casually glance at her teeth and immediately regret it. There. Not great. Which, honestly, isn't surprising. Dental hygiene in ancient Rome was more of an aspirational concept than a reality. But that doesn't mean people didn't try. Oh no, they tried hard, with determination. And, frequently, with crushed bones. You head to the small corner of your villa designated for grooming. The cubiculum, where cosmetics, tools, and yes, toothpaste jars are kept. You open a small pot labeled dentifricium. Inside, a dry, grayish powder. The scent? Somewhere between ashtray and oyster bar. You dip your finger in and taste it. Gritty, sharp, very mineral. A blend of powdered hooves, crushed oyster shells, burnt bread, and sometimes ash from animal bones. That's Roman toothpaste. No mint, no bubbles. Just calcium and suffering. Historians still argue whether these mixtures were actually effective at cleaning teeth, or if they just abraded them into smooth chalk. Either way, the goal was simple. Whiter, fresher, more respectable teeth. Because, even in a world where people rub sweat on their skin, bad breath was still a no-no. You chew on a small twig of mastic gum, a popular option for freshening breath. It tastes resinous with a faint sweetness. Not bad, actually. Ancient Romans believed it could tighten the gums and purify the mouth. Whether that's true or not is anyone's guess, but it certainly beats fish sauce breath. Now comes the mouthwash. A rinse made of vinegar and salt water. You swish it, grimace, and spit into a ceramic basin. You feel cleaner, kind of. Your teeth are no whiter, but your tongue feels slightly numbed. Progress? Quirky fact of the day. The truly elite sometimes imported powdered deer antler to polish their teeth. Others used ground-up volcanic rock, believing its heat had cleansing powers. And then there were those who swore by urine, yes, urine as a mouth rinse. Not just any urine, mind you. Portuguese urine, aged and fermented. Pliny the Elder recommended it for whitening teeth. You lower your pot of bone paste and make a mental note. No thank you. But let's not forget the tools. Romans didn't have toothbrushes as we know them. Instead, they used cloth rags, twigs, or chewed frayed sticks called miswak. You pick one up, it looks like a dry paintbrush someone gave up on halfway through. You chew it, fray it, and scrub gently across your molars. It tastes like nothing and something at the same time, earthy, bitter, vaguely herbal. You imagine. This is what Caesar's morning breath smelled like before battle. You glance over at a statue of a goddess, smiling down with perfectly smooth marble teeth. The irony is not lost on you. Back in the streets, vendors offer portable grooming kits. One hawks a bronze scraper for the tongue. Another boasts of a new enamel powder, blessed by a priest and guaranteed to cleanse all sins of the mouth. Tempting. Another hands out samples of his homemade concoction, a blend of goat's milk, ash, and salt. You smile politely and keep walking. Even in this world of wine-stained lips and sweetened dates, oral beauty mattered. A bright smile suggested wealth, discipline, and control over the body. You couldn't build an empire with yellow teeth. Or at least, you shouldn't. There were even ancient poems praising lovers' teeth, white as snow, straight as columns. And equally, poems mocking bad teeth, crooked, rotting, reeking. You imagine that somewhere, right now, a poet is composing a roast about someone who skipped their morning mastic twig. A poet is composing a roast about someone who skipped their morning mastic twig. A friend once told you about a senator who had all his teeth removed and replaced with carved ivory implants. You wonder how he chewed, or smiled, or spoke without sounding like he was gnawing on a marble statue. But then again, anything for appearances. In a quieter corner of the bathhouse, a woman is having her gums painted. Yes, painted. With a paste made of red ochre and myrrh. She says it makes her smile more youthful. You nod, not entirely convinced, but admire her commitment. The thing is, Roman beauty wasn't compartmentalized. It wasn't just skin or clothes or scent. It was every part of the body, from scalp to solace to smile. It was daily maintenance, subtle rituals, and unspoken expectations. You return to your cubicule and rinse your mouth one more time, this time with mint steeped in wine. Much better. You bare your teeth at the mirror, not white, not perfect, but certainly scrubbed to within an inch of their life. You sit back, cradling a cup of warm water and reflecting on the sheer effort that goes into being presentable in ancient Rome. Every part of you polished, scraped, dyed, or painted. Even the inside of your mouth. And yet, in some strange way, you feel put together. Maybe it's the ash. Maybe it's the mastic. Or maybe it's just knowing you've done what generations before you did. Used whatever you had to become your best self. One bone-crushing, tooth-scraping step at a time. As the light shifts through the lattice, you catch your reflection one more time. You smile. Then you remember. Dinner tonight includes honey-glazed dormice. Time to floss. You spend the afternoon prepping for the dinner party. Not the kind of prepping that involves cooking. Don't be absurd. You have servants for that. No, this is body prep. Because to arrive at a Roman feast looking anything less than freshly waxed, perfumed, and powdered would be social sabotage. You begin with the feet. Yes, the feet. After all, you're wearing sandals, and cracked heels are only one step above public disgrace. You soak them first in warm water steeped with lavender and sage. Then comes the pumice stone again, your old frenemy grinding away, the dead skin with the gentleness of a flint against your dignity. You wince. But smooth feet were essential, especially for women. Even men took pride in well-groomed soles. Historians still argue whether this was purely aesthetic or part of religious purity customs. But either way, ashy ankles were not it. You dry your feet and reach for a jar of thick balm made from goose fat and beeswax. It smells slightly like a roasted bird, but your toes will glisten. Priorities. Next. Nails. Fingernails in Rome were short, clean, and discreetly tinted. You trim yours using a tiny bronze blade, then polish with a cloth dipped in almond oil. There's no nail polish yet, But that doesn't stop people from rubbing in crushed rose petals or wine sediment to tint the tips. A wealthy merchant's wife once boasted her fingers were dyed from writing poetry with pomegranate juice. Everyone knew she had a manicurist. And the hands themselves? You massage them with olive oil, dust them with powdered lily root, then lightly scent them with orange blossom water. Why? Because you're expected to recline at dinner, and your hands will be visible gracefully plucking grapes, lifting goblets, gesturing during lazy conversation. They'd better look good. Your arms are next. You consider wrapping them in soft linen soaked in donkey milk. Yes, donkey milk, another Roman favorite. Said to soften the skin and lighten blemishes. It was so prized that Cleopatra reportedly traveled with entire herds just for bathing. Quirky, luxurious, and a little awkward to explain on customs forms. Once your limbs are glistening like polished marble, you move to body powder. Roman powders came in many forms: rice flour, crushed chalk, even mica for a subtle shimmer. You dust yourself with a soft cloth, careful not to inhale. You've already had your daily dose of possibly lethal cosmetics. Let's not overdo it. Finally, you stand in front of your wardrobe. A row of stole and palla, the Roman equivalent of formal wear. You choose a pale blue linen stola, trimmed with silver thread, elegant and breathable. The weather's still warm, and you'll be reclining on couches all evening. You pair it with a light palla, draped over one shoulder. The fabric falls in perfect pleats, not by accident. You practice for weeks. You accessorize with gold earrings shaped like tiny dolphins, a braided bracelet from Hispania, and a delicate chain around your neck with a carved amber charm. It's supposed to protect you from envy and maybe indigestion. You pause at the mirror. Everything looks in place, except your posture. You straighten your spine, tilt your chin, and try to look like someone who's descended from at least one minor goddess. Because here's the thing about Roman dinner parties: they weren't just meals, they were theater. And you were one of the main characters. You arrive at the host's villa just as the sky turns honey gold. The atrium is filled with laughter, perfume, and the clatter of bronze dishes. Slaves move like shadows, refilling cups, lighting lamps, adjusting pillows. You're led to the triclinium, the formal dining room, and shown to a couch draped in purple silk. You recline gracefully, left elbow down, ankles tucked, careful not to wrinkle your stola. The guest beside you, a senator's wife, immediately comments on your perfume. You smile. Frankincense and myrtle oil, you murmur. She nods, impressed. Across the table, a man with heavily powdered cheeks raises a cup of spiced wine. He's definitely overdone the eyeliner, but no one mentions it. Instead, they compliment the ruby ring he wears on every finger, a statement piece or compensation for something. Hard to say. Platters arrive: olives, oysters, cheese, honey cakes, and yes, the infamous glazed dormice. You take one politely and pretend it doesn't look like a crunchy hamster. You bite. It's cinnamony, an unsettlingly tender as the evening deepens. Conversation turns to poetry, politics, and beauty routines. A young woman explains her 3-step body oil regime. An older man brags that he bathes in snowmelt every morning to maintain his vigor. Someone else swears by onion juice for brightening the eyes. The room nods, pretending this isn't horrifying. You lean back, wine warm in your stomach, your skin glowing under lamplight. You realize something odd. Beneath all the strange powders and rituals and goat fat moisturizers, what people really want is to be admired. Not just seen, but seen at their best. Even if that means scrubbing your feet with volcanic pumice or powdering your face with marble dust. And somehow, in this flickering room of velvet voices and clinking goblets, it all makes sense. You laugh quietly at a joke about Julius Caesar's hairline. Someone hands you another honey cake. Your fingers are soft, your scent is perfect, Your sandals hide no secrets. Tonight, you've succeeded not just in looking beautiful, but in performing. Beauty. And that, in ancient Rome, might just be the highest art of all. The next morning, your head is a little heavy from the wine and poetry of last night, but the birds outside your villa don't care. They chirp with relentless cheer, like tiny heralds of your next beauty obligation, your hair. If the Roman face was a painted canvas, the hair was the frame, elaborate, towering, and sometimes wildly impractical. And today, you've decided to try something ambitious, the wasp's nest. You sit on a stool, and your hairdresser, ornatrix, approaches with a tray full of tools, combs, hot curling irons, pins carved from ivory, and a small pot of pine resin. You already regret this. She begins by brushing your hair with a smooth olive wood comb. The sensation is comforting, rhythmic. Then she sections it with a pointed needle and starts heating a bronze rod over a small flame. You smell burning oil. This is going to involve heat styling without safety regulations. The Roman elite adored complex updos. Tall braids, towering rolls, loops stacked like amphorae. One famous empress, Julia Domna, had a hairstyle so intricate that modern scholars think it required wigs, false inserts, and possibly scaffolding. You brace yourself as the curling rod nears your scalp. There's a soft sizzle. A tendril curls perfectly, coiled like a snail shell. One down, dozens to go. Historians still argue whether these elaborate hairstyles were created daily or only for special occasions. Either way, someone's wrists are cramping. In between curls, your ornatrix applies a paste to your roots. It's made of fig sap and egg whites meant to add hold and shine. The fringe tip of the day? Some women use mouse fat for styling. Yes, mouse fat. It's said to add volume and keep the shape in humid weather. You try not to picture the supply chain for that hair color was a statement too. Roman brunettes were common, but many upper class. Women bleached their hair with a mixture of wood ash and goat urine to achieve golden tones. You sniff cautiously. Your mixture smells more like fermented lemons. Someone's updated the recipe. Thank the gods. You ask your ornatrix if she thinks blonde hair is still in fashion. She shrugs and says it depends whether the latest Germanic captives have arrived. Imported wigs were all the rage, especially from the north. Blonde hair meant exotic, barbarian-chic. And yes, men wore wigs too. Especially balding senators trying to maintain their public image. There was no shame in it, just don't let anyone catch you adjusting it mid-speech. Your own hair is now stacked high, twisted into loops and secured with pins shaped like leaves. Your ornatrix hums as she works, occasionally flicking loose hairs off your shoulders. She adds a final touch of spritz of rosewater and a thin veil of powdered saffron. Your scalp tingles slightly, but the effect is radiant. You glance in the mirror. You look at least 4 inches taller. Regal. Sculptural. Slightly unstable. You walk carefully across the room, mindful of doorways. Your hair may technically be a weapon now, but not everyone embrace verticality. Some women, particularly those from the countryside or philosophical circles, preferred simpler styles, braided crowns, coiled buns, or soft waves. There was even a brief trend of letting curls hang loose to signal natural grace. Of course, those curls were usually curled artificially. Across the courtyard, your neighbor, let's call her Flavia, is trying a new trend she read about in a beauty scroll. It involves braiding small bells into her hair so they chime when she walks. You hear her approaching long before you see her. You wave. She compliments your wasp's nest. You nod toward her bells. Very subtle, you say, as they jingle like a shop door. She grins and asks if you've ever tried the snake braid tiny coils wrapped with green-dyed silk. Apparently, Cleopatra once wore it during a visit to Rome. You're skeptical. But make a mental note. You think about how hairstyles marked identity in Rome. Slaves and freedwomen often wore their hair short and simple. Vestal virgins styled theirs in a ritual 6-braid crown. Soldiers trimmed theirs for practicality. Emperors chose their coifs carefully. Augustus preferred a tousled, boyish look to appear eternally youthful. And when Roman women really wanted to show off, they didn't just wear styles, they named them. Styles like the Tower of Venus or the Flame of Juno. Naming your hairstyle? Iconic. You decide to call yours the Mild Regret. Of course, fashion could backfire. There are records of women fainting at feasts when their hairpieces got too hot or too tight. Others set their wigs on fire from standing too close to oil lamps. Beauty was dangerous business. As the sun reaches its peak, your head begins to ache under the weight of ambition. You lie down for a moment carefully on one side, like someone with a fragile hat made of glass. You wonder if anyone will truly appreciate your efforts. If they'll see your hairstyle and think, ah yes, that woman clearly commands respect and possibly chariot traffic. The truth is, it's not just about being noticed, it's about being part of a larger performance. A silent language of curls, pins, and height. Your hair tells a story. I belong. I matter. I took 3 hours and a team of professionals to look like this. As your ornatrix helps you up, you thank her. She smiles, wipes her hands, and begins cleaning the hot tools. You ask how she learned all this. Practice, she says. And watching the gods on stage, you smile. Because yes, today, you're a minor deity with a scalp that smells like figs and rosewater and a hairdo that may or may not pass through the doorway in one piece. Tomorrow, maybe you'll let it down. Maybe. But today, you are an architectural wonder. You're still adjusting your balance under the weight of your hair tower. Careful not to nod too enthusiastically when someone whispers the dreaded word, depilation. A shiver runs down your spine. Because in ancient Rome, smooth skin wasn't just a preference. It was a requirement. From your armpits to your ankles, hairless meant polished, civilized, and socially acceptable. Especially for women, but for men too, at least the ones who wanted to appear young, refined, and not too barbarian. You know what's coming, and yet you follow your friend into the tepidarium anyway, the warm room of the bathhouse, already filled with the sounds of dripping water, quiet chatter, and the occasional wince. She gestures toward the cosmata, the depilation specialists. These women wield tweezers, sharp shells, abrasive stones, and yes, the infamous resin wax. You look at the small jar. It glows like amber and smells faintly of pine and fear. You lie back on a marble bench, trying to relax. A cosmeta pats your leg reassuringly, then smears on a layer of warm wax mixed with tree sap and beeswax. You close your eyes and think about anything else. Gladiator poetry, maybe. Whether your wig survived last week's rainstorm, then rip, you open your mouth. No sound comes out. Just the quiet knowledge that beauty hurts. A lot. Roman hair removal methods were varied, and let's just say, aggressive. There were pumice, stones, crushed walnut shells, dull razors, tweezers, even mixtures of vinegar and cat dung. Yes, cat dung used as chemical depilatories. Historians still argue whether that last one was a serious recommendation or some kind of very unhelpful prank by Pliny the Elder. You opt to skip the dung option. Men weren't off the hook either. Roman elites, especially the young and fashionable, were expected to keep their arms, legs, and chests free of hair. Some emperors, like Hadrian, proudly wore beards, but others, like Augustus, promoted a smooth aesthetic symbolizing purity and control. In fact, having too much body hair could be seen as a sign of low status or foreign origin. You overhear Someone near the fountain whispered that a certain senator has Greek legs, meaning hairy, scandalous. A young man walks by with perfectly shaven arms, his tunic sleeves rolled up casually. Someone comments that he must have his own cosmeta. Another person scoffs and says it's all depilatory cream. He smells like sulfur when it rains. They whisper. You try to focus on your own legs, which are now red, shiny, and tingling. Your cosmeta applies a cooling salve made from cucumber juice and almond milk. You sigh with relief. The pain is subsiding. The pride, however, is rising. Because here's the thing. Depilation wasn't just vanity. It was discipline. Control over the body. A rejection of wildness, of nature. The Romans saw themselves as the bringers of order, and that included ordering your follicles into oblivion. Even statues reflected this obsession. Look at any classical marble sculpture. Smooth, hairless, perfectly chiseled skin without a hint of stubble. You too are now 80% closer to being a statue. At least from the knees down dot in the dressing area. You overhear two women discussing their favorite hair removal rituals. One recommends lemon juice and sand. Another swears by a paste made of honey and barley flour. One more claims her secret is daily prayers to Venus and vigorous scrubbing with nettles. You nod respectfully and walk away before she offers. To demonstrate, back home, you inspect the results in private. Your skin is silky, if slightly inflamed. You smooth on a thin oil made from chamomile and myrrh, massaging in slow circles. The scent is soothing. The sensation is like sliding your legs into a whisper. You think about how even this stinging, time-consuming ordeal connects you to thousands of others across time. Women, men, lovers, actors, soldiers, all trying to mold their bodies to the ideal Roman vision. Pure, polished, powerful. Even comedic poets of the day weighed in. One wrote about a man so smooth, he slipped off the couch. Another mocked the woman who shaved her eyebrows, but forgot her arms. The message was clear. Everyone noticed. And everyone judged. A small mirror reflects your handiwork. You raise an eyebrow perfectly. Inked. Thank you very much. And pose one freshly shaven leg like a victorious goddess on a battlefield of wax strips and tweezers. Quirky detail of the day. Some Romans believed removing body hair helped regulate emotions, that it calmed desire. Others thought it heightened sensuality. Even medical texts claimed excess hair indicated excess heat in the body. So, logically, the fewer hairs, the cooler, the temperament. Historians still debate whether this was pseudoscience or just ancient people trying to justify their spa days. You don't care. You feel cooler already as night falls. You slip into a light tunic, the fabric whispering across. Your smooth skin. You recline near the garden, letting the air kiss your arms and legs. You're sore, yes. Slightly sticky. You smell faintly of pine sap and victory. But more than that, you're ready for dinner, for admiration, for idle compliments whispered over wine. Because in Rome, you've learned smoothness isn't just a physical trait. It's a declaration. I have the time, the tools, and the tolerance for discomfort to rise above the unkempt masses. And if that doesn't deserve a second date, you don't know what does. You wake the next morning to the scent of something floral, jasmine, maybe, ordinarily, and the faintest ache along your freshly waxed shins. You stretch luxuriously, one arm above your head, your hairdo mercifully dismantled overnight, and now, braided loosely to avoid tangling. Today is a rest day. No banquets, no forums, no philosophical debates over lunch. Just you, your body, and the all-important Roman tradition of bathing. Baths in ancient Rome weren't just about cleanliness. They were ritual, social event, status marker, a daily reset of body and soul. And if you're anyone of consequence, which, clearly, you go big or don't bother. You pack your little wooden chest with all the essentials: olive oil in a glass flask, a curved bronze strigil, your favorite perfumes, and that almond-o body scrub your cousin swears by. Then, dressed in a light tunic and sandals, you set off for the therme. The public bath complex is colossal. Vaulted ceilings, echoing laughter, the sound of dripping water, the buzz of conversation. You inhale the mingling scents of eucalyptus, steam, citrus peels, and possibly yesterday's garlic stew. It's oddly comforting. You pass through the appetiterium, the changing room, handing your belongings to an attendant. He tucks them away with a respectful nod. You're already a familiar face here. Your first stop? The Tepidarum the warm room. Not too hot, not too cold. You lie on a marble bench, letting your muscles melt. The air is thick with heat, and your pores open like sleepy flowers. A young man to your right is discussing local grain prices while having his back massaged with rose oil. You close your eyes and pretend to care. Then it's on to the caldarium, the hot room. It's a wall of steam and stone, like stepping into the breath of a dragon. You move carefully, gripping the wet floor with practiced grace. You sit near a marble basin filled with near-boiling water and begin to sweat profusely, which is the point. Roman doctors believe sweating purified the blood and balanced the humors. Historians still debate whether there was any actual medical benefit, but one thing's certain: it leaves you glowing. You take your flask of olive oil and begin the pre-scrape ritual. That's right, pre-scrape. You rub the oil into your skin, working it into every corner. It doesn't smell like modern body wash. It's earthy, slightly fruity, slightly goatish. But it's what's next that really defines the experience. Enter the strigil, a curved metal tool designed to scrape off the oil, sweat, and dead skin in satisfying ribbons. Your attendant begins on your back, the dull blade gliding firmly but not painfully. You watch as your discarded layer is wiped onto a cloth. Gross? Yes. Effective? Also yes. Quirky tidbit. Some people collected their own bath scrapings. Seriously. Mixed with herbs and resins, this gloop was believed to have healing properties. One gladiator's strigil scrapings even sold for a high price, used as a love potion. You stare at the little pile of what was just scraped off your thigh and feel very, very single. Once fully scraped and glistening like a fresh peach, you move to the frigidarium, the cold room. You brace yourself and plunge into the cold plunge pool. Your skin tightens, your breath catches, and for a moment, you are a Roman goddess carved from ice. You resurface, exhale deeply, and float for a moment, weightless. There's something profoundly satisfying about being clean, not just washed, but ritually purified. A new version of yourself. Fresher, smoother, slightly oily, perhaps, but invincible. You dry off with a linen cloth, then step into the dressing area. Your attendant brings your perfumes. You choose 2 today, 1 base of myrrh, 1 top note of citrus. You dab them onto your wrists, behind your ears, and into the folds of your tunic. Perfume isn't subtle in Rome. It's declaration, shield, and seduction all at once. Some Romans wore as many as 16 different perfumes layered across their body. Others preferred a single signature scent. And then there were the weirdos who mixed perfume with wine and drank it for internal freshness. Historians still argue whether that was ever a good idea. A woman nearby is sprinkling violet petals into her sandals, claiming it cools the solace. Another is massaging her temples with cinnamon oil to ward off evil thoughts. You nod politely. You've definitely heard weirder. You comb your hair gently, no towering styles today. Just a simple braid down the back. You wrap a soft palla over your shoulders and take one last look in the polished bronze mirror. Your skin glows, your eyes sparkle, and your scent trail could turn heads 3 stalls over. Outside, the city pulses. Markets, temples, fountains. But for now, You walk slowly, deliberately, like someone who has just been reborn in eucalyptus vapor. You feel fresh, yes, but also oddly invincible. There's a reason emperors, generals, and philosophers made the bath a daily ritual. It's not just about vanity. It's about presence. You walk taller, speak slower, radiate care. Because in Rome, how clean you are often said more than how rich you are. It whispered, I have time, I have discipline, I value beauty. I am my own finest work of art. And as your freshly scraped skin catches the sunlight, you smile grateful that some rituals, however weird and oily, really do live up to the hype. By midday, the sun is blazing over the red-tiled rooftops, and your sandals are making that soft slap-slap sound on the paving stones as you move toward your next destination. The Macellum, Rome's bustling marketplace. You're not there to buy fish or figs or amphorae of honey. No, you're on a mission far more delicate cosmetics. You pass stalls stacked with jars, powders, oils, and bundles of strange-smelling herbs. The sellers shout their praises into the warm air, waving ceramic pots like relics. This one has the best Cherusa white lead paste for the perfect pale complexion. That one sells rouge made of crushed red ochre and mulberries, just like Livia used before attending court. You pause in front of a table with neatly arranged jars, each tied with ribbon and labeled in a soft curling script. The vendor, woman with perfectly smudged kohl and lips the color of pomegranate juice, greets you with a wink. You start with foundation. Roman ideals prize pale skin, a marker of wealth and leisure. Tan skin suggested labor, sun exposure, and the horror of honest work. So naturally, women and men slathered on face-whitening pastes made of vinegar, chalk, and most alarmingly, white lead. Yes, lead. Sweet, smooth, deadly lead. It gave a brilliant white sheen, glowing in torchlight, smoothing imperfections, and slowly poisoning the wearer. Historians still argue whether Romans understood the full extent of its toxicity, but they certainly noticed the side effects: tooth loss, hair thinning, fainting spells. Small price to pay for luminous cheekbones. Right? You test a dab of paste on your wrist. Cool, creamy, slightly gritty. It smells faintly of vinegar. The vendor assures you this one has less lead than usual. Comforting. Next comes rouge, applied delicately to the cheeks and lips. Roman rouge came from many sources: red ochre, cinnabar, beet juice, crushed rose petals, or imported carmine from Spain. You choose a deep rose tone, not too dramatic, not too meek. The goal is, just came in from writing poetry in the garden, not fainted in the heat. You blend it with a bit of beeswax for staying power. There's no blush brush, just your fingers or scrap of linen. You pat it on gently, watching the color bloom. Beside you, a merchant is demonstrating his eyeliner technique. He pulls out a stylus and dips it into powdered antimony. With a practiced hand, he lines the rim of his eye, transforming instantly into something half statue, half bedroom eyes. The Romans loved dramatic eye looks, often inspired by Egyptian kohl styles. You lean in. Tempting. You try it. Carefully tracing along your waterline, your eyes sting a little, but the effect is stunning smoky, defined, a little dangerous. You suddenly feel like you could debate Cicero and win on eyeliner alone. A quirky favorite in Rome? Soot-based. Mascara. Some women use soot from burnt cork or oil lamps, mixed with gum resin, to darken their lashes. Others applied it with fish bones or tiny ivory combs. You wonder how many women accidentally poked themselves into temporary blindness, chasing fluttery lashes. Probably more than a few. And the eyebrows? Oh, the brows again. You pluck strays with your bronze tweezers and fill in the arch with charcoal. Just a little. No full unibrow today. You're going for intellectual but approachable. The stall next door offers lip stains made of iron oxide or crushed berries. The vendor claims this one makes men weep. You choose the lighter shade anyway. You're not in the mood to ruin anyone's toga. Nearby, a woman is testing Freckle. Cream. She whispers that her husband finds freckles charming, but the senator's wife sneered at them last week. So, out they go. The cream is made of ground almonds and honey. You think it smells like cake. You spot a jar labeled anti-wrinkle paste. Ingredients: stag marrow, rose water, and weight crushed pearl. You raise an eyebrow. The vendor insists it. Smooths the skin, adds glow, and also attracts prosperity. You buy it, mostly out of curiosity. Another item catches your eye. Nipple rouge. Yes, that was a thing. Colored paste to tint the nipples pinker, rosier, more youthful. Because apparently, even your undertunic presentation had aesthetic standards. You decline, barely suppressing a giggle. You gather your small bundle of purchases, satisfied and only mildly concerned about the lead content. A little poison in pursuit of perfection. How very Roman. Back home, you lay out your cosmetic tools. Your bronze mirror reflects a face still flushed from the sun, now powdered and painted to imperial perfection. You apply each item with care, turning your reflection slowly, catching the best angle under the lamplight. And here's what's wild: none of this is secret. In Roman society, it's not shameful to wear makeup. It's expected. Praised, even, but too much. That's another story. Writers like Juvenal mocked women who took too long applying cosmetics or showed up to feasts smelling like an apothecary explosion. Others warned that makeup hid deceit, that behind every powdered face lurked ambition or seduction. But still, they couldn't look away. You chuckle, thinking of your friend who claims she gets ready in 1 hour max. You know for a fact she has a 7-step facial routine involving crushed pearls and snail mucus. And she looks fabulous. Historians still argue whether Roman cosmetics were more about attracting others or performing identity for the self. Maybe both. You sit back and admire the result. Not perfect, not timeless, but unmistakably you. A version of you that says, I care, I try, I glow, even when the lead bites back. Outside, the sky deepens into purple. You light a lamp, the flame, casting a golden hue on your polished skin. Your lips curve into a soft smile. You look every bit the portrait on a villa wall. Not because of magic, because of effort. And maybe a little beet juice. As the moon rises higher over the rooftops, casting silver patterns across your tiled courtyard, you recline on a woven chaise, massaging scented oil into your arms and marveling again at how much effort goes into simply existing beautifully in Rome. But you're not done yet. Tonight's focus? Scent. Not just smelling nice, but curating a personal fragrance strategy, like an olfactory armor woven from flowers, spices, woods, and let's be honest, some incredibly strange animal bits. You begin with your perfume chest. It's carved. Lid depicting Venus rising from the sea, flanked by tiny dolphins. Inside, small flasks of oils, pomades, and pastilles, each nestled in padded compartments like precious stones. You unstop one vial and sniff myrrh and cinnamon bark. Another rose water, steeped in musk. A third something alarming, probably the civet paste. You put that one bag. In ancient Rome, perfume wasn't optional. It was layered, flaunted, and carefully selected for occasion, season, and social rank. You'd wear one scent for daytime, errands, another for feasts, another, how shall we say, for romantic negotiations. Some even wore different perfumes on different body parts. Shoulders scented with lily, wrists with cedar, hair brushed with saffron-infused oil. You dab your temples with spikenard, earthy and calming. Behind your ears, you apply a blend of frankincense and orange blossom. On your inner wrists, something soft and sweet, pressed violets in almond oil. The effect? a fragrant fog of sophistication, and maybe a tiny bit of flirtation. Perfume in Rome was serious business. The most expensive kinds came from Arabia, India, and Egypt, arriving in amphorae wrapped in wool, stored in cool vaults. Some were so rare that just a drop cost more than a slave's yearly wages. Nero reportedly burned a year's supply of cinnamon at his wife's funeral. Historians still debate whether it was mourning or humble brag. There's even a quirky belief that perfume could protect against disease. Not entirely wrong, considering some oils have antibacterial properties, but others, like oil of beaver gland, were pure superstition. Still, if you smelled like a well-fed forest creature and felt healthier for it, who's to argue? You remember a party last spring where a man wore such an intense musk that 2 senators passed out. Or pretended. Tio. Either way, he wasn't invited again. Back in your courtyard, you light a small cone of incense kifi, the Egyptian blend beloved by Roman elites. It smells of honey, resin, wine, and something slightly spicy. The smoke curls in lazy spirals, adding atmosphere to your own cloud of scent. You sip a cup of warm milk and honey as the aroma settles over your skin, and it's not just your body that gets perfumed. You open your linen chest and toss in a few sachets: dried rose petals, cloves, crushed laurel leaves. Your clothing will carry whispers of it tomorrow. You place a small scented wax tablet inside your sandals. Yes, your feet will smell like lavender. Rome takes layering seriously. A friend once told you she perfumes her letters before sending them. Her husband claims he can smell her thoughts. You make a mental note to try it. The domus next door is hosting a dinner, and you catch a hint of cinnamon and cardamom drifting over the wall. You smile. Everyone's competing for best aroma tonight. There's even a popular game at banquets, where guests try to guess each other's perfume blends. The winner gets a garland of flowers. The loser gets gently roasted in verse. One satirical poet mocked a man for wearing so many scents at once, he smelled like a perfumed goat in a thunderstorm. Ouch, but scent wasn't just for seduction or status. It was memory, ritual, protection. Brides were anointed with specific oils before their wedding night. Newborns were dabbed with frankincense. Temples used special perfumes during sacrifice. You could walk into a room and know what event had happened there based on the scent alone. You reach for your nighttime blend, a balm of chamomile and sweet marjoram. You rub it into your shoulders and collarbones, letting it sink into your freshly scrubbed skin. Your muscles relax. Your eyelids grow heavy. Even the moon seems to glow softer now. You think about how Roman scent culture isn't all that different from yours. Sure, there's more civet and resin involved, but the desire, the intention, it's the same. To express yourself without words. To feel like yourself, but better. Historians still argue whether Rome's perfume obsession was about masking the world's smells or making the world more bearable through beauty. Probably both. Especially when the Tiber runs low. As you lay back and inhale your own carefully composed scent trail, somewhere between nymph and nighttime. Pastry, you feel satisfied. You've been painted, powdered, scraped, perfumed, and polished into someone worthy of a goddess's nod. And yet, it's strangely comforting. All of it because in a world that's unpredictable, where politics teeter, wars rage, and sandals break mid-procession, at least you know exactly how you'll smell. And sometimes that's enough. You sleep deeply, swaddled in layers of linen and scent, dreaming of amphorae overflowing with rose petals and wine that doesn't stain your teeth. But the morning sun arrives like a pushy messenger, slipping through the shutters and landing directly on your face. You blink, stretch, and slowly sit up, realizing today is market day. Not the usual kind for buying cosmetics or goat cheese this time. You're shopping for beauty tools. Yes, the behind-the-scenes cast of your transformation. Tweezers, brushes, pumice, spatulas, combs, mirrors, lash curlers, sort of, and possibly something sharp enough to worry your physician. Because in ancient Rome, looking good was a team effort, and your toolkit was everything. You dress simply pale tunic, low-slung belt, hair in a sensible plait. You don't want to draw attention away from your mission. You pack a small purse of coins, sling it under your sash, and head out, joining the stream of voices, sandals, and donkey carts. The Vicus Argentarius Rome shopping street is already alive. The sun bakes the stones beneath your feet, but the vendors are busy setting up shop. Clay jars clink, bronze mirrors glint, and someone's already yelling about a miracle depilatory. You start with the mirror stall. Roman mirrors weren't glass, but polished bronze or silver, burnished to a high shine. You pick one up circular, palm-sized, with a handle shaped like a dolphin. It shows your reflection dimly, a little wavy, but enough to see whether your eyebrows have become sentient overnight. You consider one with a carved Venus on the back. Beautiful. And a little on the nose dot next. You examine hair combs. Some are bone, some are ivory, and one particularly expensive set is tortoiseshell, imported from the East. Two-pronged, wide-toothed, spiral-ended, each type serves a purpose. Taming curls, parting hair, holding a victory roll in place through a chariot race. Wow, almost. You test a coon's teeth gently against your scalp. Smooth, satisfying. A vendor leans in. That one's been rubbed with rosemary for luck. You nod gravely, pretending that luck is your top concern, not scalp comfort. Then there are tweezers, Volsalk delicate bronze pincers for removing stray hairs, reshaping brows, or, if you're unlucky, catching a splinter from your bathhouse. Bench. You pick out a set with floral engravings. Very discreet, the vendor assures you. Won't scare your dinner guests. One stall over offers spatulas and mixing spoons, not for soup, mind you, but for mixing cosmetics. Foundation, paste, eye pigments, even perfumes. You pick one with a flat end for blending and a spoon end for scooping. Multi-purpose, like your friend Claudia, who somehow balances 3 lovers and a weaving business. You spot something intriguing, a cosmetic palette made of slate. 4 little wells carved into the stone, each designed to hold a different powder or paste. Historians still argue whether these were standard beauty kits or reserved for elites. Either way, they're beautiful, and they let you pretend you're a priestess mixing sacred ointments, even if it's just cheek rouge. A quirky item catches your eye, a tiny funnel for pouring perfume into miniature bottles. It's delicate, absurdly unnecessary, and you want it immediately. The vendor winks and throws in a stopper carved from coral. You feel fancy just holding it. Some tools are downright intimidating. A long curved blade, technically a razor, but it looks like something you'd brandish in a political uprising. Very sharp, the seller says proudly. Works on everything. You smile politely and back away. You pause to browse a stall selling storage. Box as cosmetic chests carved from wood and inlaid with ivory or shell. One opens to reveal nested compartments. Powders, jars, brushes, pins. You imagine yourself flipping it open before a feast, dabbing perfume and choosing earrings. Like a general preparing for battle. Another chest has a hidden drawer for letters and secrets. You think about all the whispered notes and love charms tucked into compartments like this over centuries. A blush creeps onto your already rouged cheeks. Back home, you unpack your haul like a treasure hunter returning from conquest. You lay each item on your dressing table. The mirror, the comb, the new tweezers, a silly but irresistible funnel. You line them up. Admire their shapes. The quiet purpose of each. You take a moment to clean your tools. Romans were surprisingly hygienic. about their beauty gear. You dip the comb in vinegar water, wipe the mirror with olive oil, polish the spatula with a scrap of linen. It's meditative. Personal? Later, your friend stops by and sees your new toolkit. She gasps. "That funnel is adorable," she says. And you pretend you're not ridiculously pleased. The two of you sit in the courtyard, sharing a bowl of grapes and comparing tools like soldiers comparing swords. She has a new Volselk shaped like a dolphin. You counter with your coral stopper. Mutual admiration is exchanged. Compliments. Gossip. A mini fashion summit. And here's the thing. In Rome, your tools weren't just functional. They were statements. Of taste. Of class. Of control. The right mirror could earn respect. The wrong comb? Social disaster. Even husbands got involved, gifting their wives elaborate grooming kits to prove devotion. Nothing says eternal love like a sandalwood brow brush. Historians still argue whether these kits were mostly used in private or shown off publicly. But you've made your decision. Yours will be both. As the sun begins to dip, you gather your tools into your cosmetic chest, fold a cloth gently over them, and close the lid with a satisfying click. Everything in its place. Every detail considered. You're not just painted, you're equipped. And in this city of senators, soldiers, and schemers, sometimes the sharpest weapon is a pair of well-polished tweezers. It's well past sunset when you return from a casual stroll down the Forum. Your hair slightly wind-tossed, and your cheeks still holding the warmth of laughter, perfume, and wine. But now, the villa is quiet. Lanterns flicker low. The city hums softly in the distance, and it's time. Not for bed, not quite. You still have one final ceremony before sleep. The Roman nighttime. Beauty routine. You kick off your sandals and begin unwinding the braid you've worn all day, gently tugging the strands free. Each loop lets out a small sigh of relief. Your scalp thanks you. You reach for your styling oil, warmed slightly by placing it beside a lantern earlier. It smells of laurel and sweet myrrh. You comb it through slowly with your fingers, starting at the ends. No tugging. The Romans were oddly ahead of their time about hair care. Split ends were the enemy, and yanking at tangles was considered barbaric. You hum softly as you work the oil in. The silence is cozy, padded with little creaks of wooden beams and the distant hoot of an owl. Across the room, your dressing chest is open, waiting. You begin the skincare process, like a priestess preparing for ritual, each step deliberate. Sacred, slightly sticky. First, the cleansing paste, a mix of barley flour, milk, and honey. It's thick and gritty, like someone mashed a cookie on your face. But once spread across your skin and left to dry for a few minutes, it pulls the day's sweat, powder, and moral compromises straight out of your pores. You rinse it off with warm rosewater. Then comes the toning spritz, decoction of vinegar steeped with mint leaves and fennel. It smells assertive. You apply it with a piece of soft linen. Your skin tingles. Historians still argue whether these mixtures were primarily aesthetic or medicinal. Roman women certainly believed in balance between heat and cold, dryness and moisture. Everything needed to be just so to maintain harmony. Inside and out. Next is moisturizer. Yours is a thick balm made of beeswax, olive oil, and iris root. You press it into your cheeks and forehead, moving in little upward circles. You mutter a quick thanks to Venus under your breath, just in case. Then you apply eye cream, or its ancient equivalent, a salve made from cucumber juice and powdered pearl. You dab it gently under your eyes. Romans believed pearls had cooling, purifying energy. Also, they just loved expensive things. A quirky touch? You pick up a small pot of night-lip tint, tinted slightly with beetroot and scented with clove. Just because you're going to bed doesn't mean your lips shouldn't look like you've been kissed by Apollo. A little indulgence never hurt anyone. You check your mirror, a bronze disc now fogged from steam and ritual, and smile. You look dewy, peaceful, ready. You brush your teeth with a twig dipped in crushed oyster shell and vinegar. It's chalky, slightly briny, and makes your gums tingle. You swish with mint-infused water. There, breath, fresh enough to sweet-talk a minor deity in a dream dot, and before you head to bed, you tie a thin silk ribbon loosely around your curls. Not too tight. No marks. Just enough to keep the goddess glow intact till morning. You step into the sleeping chamber, where cool linen sheets await. But before slipping beneath them, you rub your feet with lavender oil. Not for others, for you. To carry the scent of quiet into your sleep. The room is lit, only by a single oil lamp now flickering gently. The walls glow soft gold. You hear crickets outside and the rustle of a fig tree in the courtyard. You stretch out on the couch, the stone cool beneath you, the cushion yielding just enough dot, and you settle in. Your mind drifts. You think of how much the night ritual calms you. Not just the clean skin or the scented hair. It's the control, the rhythm, the moment to say, "Yes, world, I showed up. I sparkled. I removed my leg hair with molten pine sap. And now I rest." You think of women across the city, wealthy matrons, temple maidens, overworked innkeepers, all going through their own rituals. Maybe not with crushed pearl, maybe not with saffron foot salves, but with care, with intention, with a desire to greet tomorrow as the best version of themselves. Even the poets wrote about it. One line you love: she sleeps, not in shadow, but in preparation. It always makes you smile. You shift slightly, letting your hair fan out over the pillow. You smell like violets, almonds, and just a hint of crushed laurel. Your skin is soft. Your heart is full. And you know, tomorrow will bring new challenges, new styles to try, new gossip to survive, maybe even a new freckle to debate. But for now, you did everything right. You honored the mirror. You worshiped the body. You practice beauty not as vanity, but as devotion. And that's enough. The stillness of the Roman night wraps around you like a silk veil. Your limbs sink further into the bedding linen, smoothed and cooled with rosewater earlier, now faintly damp with the scent of the day. You drift near sleep, but there's one final layer to this ancient beauty odyssey. Not the skin, not the hair, not even the perfume. No, this last part is about behavior, the finishing touch to your entire presentation. Because in Rome, beauty wasn't just about how you looked. It was how you moved, how you spoke, the way you tilted your head when listening to a compliment or sipped wine with calculated grace. Everything was a performance, a role, an illusion so complete it became truth. So let's rewind to earlier today. At the garden feast. You arrived late, not by accident, but by design. Romans believed a little mystery added allure. You let your sandal heels echo softly on the stone path as you entered the villa courtyard. Every eye flicked toward you. Your skin glowed from last night's almond oil ritual. Your sleeves just barely grazed your shoulders. You weren't just there. You were the moment. You remembered your posture straight, but never stiff. You laughed when expected, gently. Your hands gestured softly when speaking. You turned your full face toward the person talking, nodded thoughtfully. All Roman body language, controlled, elegant, mildly flirtatious, even when discussing tax grain. Reforms. You were art in motion. Because to be truly beautiful in Roman society, one had to behave beautifully. That meant modesty in tone, but not in confidence. Composure in scandal. Graciousness, even when faced with dreadful appetizers. Historians still debate whether this performance of femininity was oppressive or empowering. But whatever it was, it worked. You remember how, at one point, Someone spilled a goblet of wine near your sandals. You didn't flinch. You simply glanced down, smiled, and adjusted your palate with languid, theatrical precision. Everyone noticed. Everyone thought later, in conversation, you quoted Virgil, not the whole verse, just enough to sound cultured. You made a quiet joke about hair wax shortages during last year's sandal strike. You accepted compliments with a soft perhaps, and never said thank you directly. That would be too eager. You remembered what your older cousin once told you. A Roman woman must never seem to try. Her perfection must look accidental. You hated how true that was. Even your voice was part of the aesthetic. Not too loud, not too soft, just husky enough to sound mature. You've trained it. During long baths, you whispered poetry into clay pots to practice the ideal cadence. A bit extra? Maybe. But here, extra is the baseline dot. It's not just women who have to master the art. Roman men, at least the refined ones, also practiced their expressions. Their walk, their use of hand gestures while making a philosophical point. One senator reportedly practiced mirror smiling for an hour each day. Another banned himself from laughing with his mouth open, said it made him look provincial. Quirky fact of the night. Some Romans hire behavior coaches. Yes, literal demeanor tutors to refine their social presentation. How to walk, how to react to bad news, how to mourn fashionably at a funeral. You wonder if yours would be proud today. You held your wine cup just right, never slouched, and didn't once overshare during dinner. You think back to your walk home, the scent of jasmine. In the air, the wine humming in your chest. A neighbor complimented your hair. You thanked her with a smile and 0 words. Just a smile. And now, curled in bed, you realize that this wasn't just a performance, it was protection. Influence, art. Beauty in Rome wasn't soft or passive. It was strategy. Just like oiling your hair or scrubbing your elbows, it was a form of power. And yes, some days it felt exhausting. Faking peace when you're furious. Smiling through sunburn. Holding in a sneeze to avoid crinkling your eyeliner. But other days, it felt like magic. Because when you moved with purpose, when your words melted instead of clanged, when you turned heads with nothing but a glance and a whiff of frankincense, it was like flying. You feel it even now. As sleep creeps in, the gentle dignity of having held yourself like sculpture. Of having moved through the world as though carved from warm marble. And so you stretch one last time, sigh softly, and let your mind go quiet. You've bathed, painted, plucked, powdered, perfumed, dressed, and posed. But more than that, you've lived beautifully. And that, in this bustling, unpredictable empire of marble, sweat, and poetry, might just be the greatest power of all. And now, as the last thoughts fade, let yourself go still. No more bustling streets. No sandals clacking. No hot wax. Just soft air moving gently through the room, like a quiet tide rising and falling with your breath. Your skin, so carefully treated, glows gently in the dark. Your limbs, heavy and grateful, settle deeper into the linens. The perfume you dabbed hours ago still lingers faintly violet, myrrh, maybe a hint of something sacred. Let it wrap around you, like a lullaby made of petals. The night is quiet now. The city sleeps. Even the fountains seem to whisper more softly. You've done enough. You've tended to your rituals, honored your routines, stepped into your power. With every brushstroke and every calculated glance. You don't need to hold anything anymore. You're allowed to soften to let the marble melt. To let the mirror turn away. To be only breath and skin and silence as your body sinks and your thoughts float. You might even dream of warm stone baths, sun-washed terraces, polished mirrors catching the light little glimpses of beauty left. Behind like seashells on the shore, you are still. You are safe. You are glowing, even here, even now. Sleep. knowing you've lived this day as the Romans did, beautifully, deliberately, and with a whisper of magic in every motion. Rest well.